Hello, Third Win Superfans, Christian, Jaden, Rose, Sarah, and Corey. Today, I wanted to make a video talking about the 16 iCarly characters. And why am I talking about them? Well, I just made this Survivor show you might have noticed on the Third Win channel, and it's just for fun. It's a fun little thing to do. And to make this show, I spent like 3 or 4 hours going through these character profiles, which is what I wanted to talk to you about today. It's going to be a more relaxed, drawn-out video where I talk about these characters, but since you guys are Third Win super fans, I figured maybe you'd like to hear my thoughts. So here are the profiles. We have 12 different, this white text here is different personality traits, right? These are different personality traits. I've numbered every character and every personality trait from 1 to 5. So I won't talk about all these averages and everything, but I'm going to highlight every character with the most notable things that I've noted for them, right? For example, with Gwen, we haven't seen her be challenged much, so these are more about challenges. And I guess we can start with social skills. She's again, we haven't seen that much. We've seen her communicate with her family, and it seems good. But in terms of her temperament, last episode we saw though she can get angered if you break her trust. So I gave her an easily angered a 2 out of 5 there. Next, down here, you can see that I gave her a very high 5 out of 5 for loyalty. And this is, we don't know that much about Gwen. We've only seen her twice, but my intuition is that she's a very loyal person. She'll never break Millicent's trust. Next, in terms of forgiveness, we saw her forgive Freddie for not being, transparent with her. And because she's a Latina, I think she's quite bold. And we can see this in her language, like, who put pineapple in my recipe? Who has the audacity to change my recipe, right? Things like this. And then again, my intuition says that she's an intuitive person, but then again, she didn't suspect Carly and Freddie, so maybe that's not quite right. But let's move on to Harper, who I think is in great shape. She looks like she goes to the gym, so I gave her a great for her physical, a 4 out of 5. And for stamina, I gave her a 2 because I don't think she's a person that can kind of keep going for a long time. Her energy levels go up and down, I think. As we see with Carly and Harper, they kind of sometimes they slouch on the couch and like, okay, today we're not doing anything, right? But where she is super strong, 5 out of 5, is she's a complete social butterfly. She's an expert with people and very social. And a good combination is also her temperament. She's almost always calm, which is exactly what you need for Carly that has kind of been all over the place in the first 3 seasons of the revival, right? But we haven't seen her use strategy. I gave her a 2 out of 5. I don't think she's a strategic person in that way, but I think she's very forgiving, as we saw with Maeve in the first season. I think she's bold, of course, with all these dates she goes on. She's usually the one to strike first, right? So I think she's bold in that way. And she's quite influential being the designer that she is for clothing, and seems like she talks to some influential people. And knowing Carly, then you automatically are a little influential. And I think she's the only character I gave a 5 out of 5 on intuition, because I feel that she's so good with people that she immediately kind of knows what they're going through and knows the approach. And that's why she's such a great support bubble for Carly. And that's what we've been seeing her do a lot in season 3. Next, let's talk about Marissa, who I think, because of her age, is of course not as on that physical peak. But then again, I've never seen her struggle. She always gets what she wants to get done. And endurance and stamina, I gave her great and high because I've never seen her tire. Like, again, she doesn't give up. She doesn't complain necessarily, or in the original at least, she didn't at all. In terms of social skills, maybe you'd expect higher, but I gave her a decent because, especially in the original, we saw that she's not that good at communicating what she wants to say in a respectful and nice way, right? And in I Go to Toledo, we saw that she can get easily angered, and when it comes to Freddie, she can definitely get easily angered. Everything else about Marissa, pretty average. She plays slightly safe. I think she's not that bold. I wouldn't say that her relationship with Freddie marks anything bold, and she's pretty uninfluential. She's mostly a stay-at-home mom, right? Next, which makes me wonder where she gets her money, right? Well, doesn't matter. Next, we got Millicent up here, and we haven't really seen her be challenged yet. She's kind of strayed away from the challenges, but in terms of her mental game and her temperament, she's got the great combination of being a 5 out of 5 beast in the mental challenge department and the temperament. She's always calm. I mean, for 13-year-old especially, definitely 5 out of 5. Next, I think that Millicent might be a strategic mastermind. She plays her dad like a fiddle, right? So I think that she deserves a 5 there, but I don't think she's very forgiving. Like we've seen with Carly, she's, she holds a grudge. She's pretty stubborn on her opinions, right? Next, we have influence and intuition, and I think for both of those, she deserves a 4. She seems like a very intuitive person who kind of gets it right away, and her influence, she is kind of moving into that social media game, so I think she has some influence. And at her school, probably as well, and just knowing who she is. And in the end of season 2, we saw that with the MUN or what it was. Next, we have Nora, who I gave a 5 out of 5. She's an absolute beast physically, as we saw in the original iCarly. My God. And she climbed a whole building to stalk Carly and Freddie in the second episode of the revival. So, has to be a beast. And endurance, she's endures. She gets to what she wants. And same thing, stamina, kind of like Marissa. Social skills, then again, terrible. No one wanted to come to her party. She literally trapped people to get them to talk to her. That's not good. And temperament, definitely easily angered, as we saw in her fight with Gibby. By the way, that's also why she's a beast. She fought Gibby pretty much hand in hand, right? Strategically, what she planned was pretty elaborate, so pretty great. Loyalty level, complete backstabber, sociopath. Forgiveness, she's like, this might be odd, but she's very forgiving. Like Carly can say the worst, most horrendous thing to her, and she's like, okay, la la la. She's also very bold. The risk she took landed her in jail, and people who are bold often end up in jail. So 5 out of 5 there. Influence, she's pretty uninfluential, not very popular, but I guess she's made the news a few times. And intuition, she's very unintuitive. She doesn't understand what's going on. People need, even if you tell her directly. Next, we got Paul up here, who I think is in great shape, strong guy. Also, I don't, especially after last episode, he seems like the guy, again, who kind of like fluctuates in energy levels, not very consistent. Sometimes he's great, sometimes he's not, and when it comes to energy. Social skills, he seems like he's got that under wraps, although he can be a little awkward, especially with Gwen last episode in episode 9, season 3. And I think he's usually calm. He's learned some things from being a manager. Down here, we can see I've given him, in terms of loyalty, my intuition is he's not very trustworthy. I think as a manager, he's kind of has to turn corners a lot, even with his clients. And he's pretty bold. I think he's a big risk taker. We saw him kind of no stopping hit on Gwen last episode, so that's pretty bold. Moving on, we got Sam, who I gave the beast 5 out of 5. If I could give a 6 out of 5 to Sam, I would. Endurance, again, she doesn't show signs of tiring in a challenge. But in terms of her energy levels, they can definitely go after some good food. She can hit rock bottom. So I gave her an average on that. But social skills, she's not great at social skills. She can hardly figure out herself, so it's difficult for her. And in terms of all the characters, she has the worst temperament. I gave her extreme rage. She's physical. Down here, Sam, I don't think she's very forgiving. That's just not in her nature. She's it's hard to kind of for her to get over things, as we saw with her mom. She's very bold, gets into trouble a lot. Very influential, being a huge star for iCarly with millions of viewers, and she's pretty intuitive in the same way that Harper is. She kind of reads through bullshit pretty easily. Next, we got Spencer, who I think is in great physical shape, a lot of energy when he's running around. Mental, I think if he's challenged mentally, then he's going to struggle. But then again, he's a social butterfly. He's just such a likable character, but also in their own universe, he's definitely a social butterfly. Then I think he's the most forgiving character in the show. I think he'll forgive almost anyone, even like Neville and Nora. He's pretty bold, being an artist. He needs to be, and he's not shy at all. He's pretty bold and forward, and he's very influential now in the revival. He's a huge artist, and that's comes with the most influences of ever any character really in the show, other than like Carly. And his intuition is pretty terrible. He has to ask, and usually he gets it wrong over and over again. I just realized loyalty level, yeah, but he does tend to blurt out things he shouldn't. Next up, we got Carly, who I don't think is in great physical form. We saw that in the sixth episode of season 3, where she had to do the physical stuff. Could barely run one distance, like a few feet. Next, I think she's great socially. We've seen a lot of her awkwardness, but overall, great socially. She has to be for being such a big figure. And she's almost always calm. She has her moments, but she's almost always calm. Next, for Carly down here, we have her strategic ability. We haven't seen any of that, so average. And her loyalty level seems very high. Where it's not a 5, I don't know. I feel like she's shown that she can be quite deceptive when it comes to like Neville and stuff like that. But I guess that doesn't necessarily mean she's unloyal. But no, 4 is high. Next, her boldness. I think that's one thing that Carly definitely isn't the best on. She's quite a timid person, really. She's not like super extroverted or bold. But she's incredibly influential, and she's reached millions and millions of people, right? But also, again, like her brother, quite unintuitive. Sometimes things can go right over her head. Moving on, we're making our way through these characters. We got Chuck, who we haven't really seen that much from him, but I think he endures a lot. One of his challenges is Spencer, and he endures that really well, and he keeps his energy levels high. He's motivated, but he's very easily angered, often spraying mystery liquids at people. And I think his strategic ability is pretty high, dealing with Spencer and like manipulating that girl in the original was his sister, right? And Spencer, that was fun. And his loyalty level, complete backstabber. You can never trust this guy. And forgiveness, he has the biggest grudge on Spencer. He'll never forgive him. Very, very bitter. Bold, locking Spencer in a cage. That's super bold. And trying to trick Carly and all that. In terms of influence, he has no influence. And two, like maybe something. But like just because of his boldness, some influence comes into play there. But and his intuition, he didn't figure out that Carly was teaching him a fake number, and he was getting played. That's pretty unintuitive. So I gave him a 2 there. Next, we got Freddy, one of the big characters. I think he's average physically. Maybe he's gotten higher in the revival, but we just don't have that much evidence of that. And in terms of endurance, I gave endurance, mental, stamina. I gave him very high marks because dealing with that crush with Carly and the way he dealt with it just says a lot. He's very enduring, high energy guy. Great social skills. Always thought that, despite being labeled as like a geek. And down here, I think again, Freddy really shines. He's got great strategic ability. He's the most loyal character in the show. But he struggles a little bit from not being bold enough. I feel like the 2 failed marriages, the failed companies come perhaps from him playing it very safe a lot of the time. Even with Carly, he played it safe in the years between. And his influence is pretty big coming from iCarly, and not much to say about his intuition. It can, he's been known as gullible as well. Gibby, one of my favorites, right? Beast physical, beast endurance, but got nothing up in the brain, nothing up in the mental department. Although, I guess that's can be seen both ways, right? In terms of mental challenges, was fighting Nora a mental challenge? I don't know. I gave him 1 there. I don't think it's. I think that's probably appropriate. And again, stamina up there. Social skills, Gibby. Despite what a lot of people think, Gibby is pretty good socially. Look at his dates and look at him opening a restaurant, right? So yeah. Moving on down here, we're getting to the end of this massive mess that I've made. But he's terrible at strategy, let's be honest. But he's very loyal. He's the most, again, with Freddy, very loyal character. He'll never betray his friends. And he went to save them from Nora, right? Very unforgiving, I think, especially with what we saw from Freddy. One of his best friends made a move on his girl, or supposedly did. And that, he was not forgiving even when he heard what he had to say, right? I think he holds a grudge. Next, very bold, Gibby taking off his shirt. Enough said, right? Influence, again, being part of the iCarly gang, starting a restaurant, being quite popular in the end. I think he's quite influential, and I have a feeling he still is today. And then again, intuition, probably the least intuitive character in the entire iCarly universe. Moving on, we got Lubert, who I think is great at enduring when it comes to a challenge. We've seen him really really burn when he's vivid about something, and then in terms of his energy being the doormat, I think that really fluctuates. Probably below average, and his social skills are amongst the worst in the whole show. They've gone a lot better, but I have to take the original into account, and obviously easily angered, and he goes wild. I was thinking about giving a 1 out of 5 there. Then again, I also think even now, I think he's not super trustworthy. I think he's quite a snake, especially in the original, and I don't think he's very forgiving. We saw that in I Heard Lubert, or Find Lubert's Last Love. A lot of that stuff, he's just not forgiving. He's not a forgiving guy. Next, we have influence. I think he's not influential at all, just to his close circle. We saw he has like no friends in the recent episode as well. And his intuition, I think he's quite unintuitive, falling for all those Carly and Freddie and Sam pranks. Next, we got Neville. Exciting character, I think, for this. Neville, I don't think he's peak physically at all. I think that's something that he strays away from. Mentally, then, he deals with challenges very well. Socially, you might think he's great because of his kind of celebrity status in the universe, but really he's not very good with people. He's blatantly disrespectful. But he's cultured, but that's not really a social skill. I think he's very easily angered, as we saw in the episode where Neville loses all respect in the original. And down here, I think he's probably the most strategic mastermind, maybe alongside like Millicent in iCarly, so he deserves that. But again, loyalty, backstabber, never know what he'll do, very unforgiving, holds a huge grudge on Carly forever, and he's a big risk taker with all these stunts on Carly and Shelby Marks and all that stuff. And in terms of his influence, he's got a big website, and his intuition, he usually figures things out. We got 2 characters left here. We got Pearl, who I think is in great form. We saw some stunting from her on the Silks in the first episode of the 3rd season of the revival, but everything else pretty average. But she can be angered to a degree where she throws an axe at people. So I had to give her a 2 out of 5 there. And otherwise, pretty average, but she's pretty uninfluent, and her boldness, she feels a little bit reserved. She could have said more about Freddie and Carly and how I guess she did say about it, but it took a long time to really, even after she saw evidence, she waited so long. Tebow is our last character here, and I think he's got great endurance running a restaurant, which must be a challenge, as we've seen through the years. And again, energy levels had to be kept high. He had to show up every day for that. So had to give him high marks there. And social skills, great. Maybe a little bit pushy, but he's got great social skills. Otherwise, Tebow's got great forgiveness, and he's quite bold with his sales tactics, and his influence is quite big, with his groovy smoothie being what it is, but what it was. But then again, I don't think he's got great intuition, like realizing certain things, like people don't want tacos on a stick. He doesn't realize it. But that's all the characters. And before I mean, that was one segment of the hours of work that I did on this. But the other part is that I kind of took a look at all these characters and thought, what's their relationship with one another? And what we have here is that we have, for example, Gwen. I'll just note her biggest allies and enemies here, I guess. Obviously, unbreakable bond with Millicent. She knows Marissa quite well. Paul, after the last episode, she definitely has a slight dislike for pushing so much. And then a strong bond with Carly, of course. Moving on, we have Harper here, who, of course, has a very strong bond with Millicent, has a strong, a growing bond with Spencer, and has an unbreakable bond with Carly, of course. And then we got Marissa, for example, who has extreme hatred towards Nora. But if we go to Nora, I'm jumping ahead here because I want to show you guys. If we jump to Nora, she doesn't have. She's or actually that's a bad example. For Nora, for example, she has an unbreakable bond with Sam. She loves her no matter what, even if she hits her. But Sam has an extreme hatred for Nora. So, sorry, I jumped ahead there because I was excited about that. It's like a non-mutual thing. But moving on, Millicent, of course, with her mom, unbreakable bond with Gwen and her grandma and her dad. And some of these I've made permanent so they can't change in the game. Obviously, with her dad, it's going to be an unbreakable bond. But we don't really need to go through all these. If you've seen the show, I think you kind of understand them. And for example, I mean, one for the fans, I had to show. I mean, I made Carly's bond with Freddy unbreakable, of course, and permanent. We don't want to see that changing throughout the show. Are there any more interesting ones? Well, of course, Neville. It's all the standard. The villains have questionable loyalties, right? So mild dislike with Freddy. Never really had anything to do with Freddy, and a bit of a dislike towards Carly. But really, it's to do with Spencer, right? Extreme hatred. But I think I really wanted to show the personalities off more. I think these ones are more straightforward, the relationships themselves, and you'll kind of see them in the Survivor show if you watch them anyway there. But the personalities are more hidden, right? So I hope you enjoy this little look. We can go back to our tribes here. I hope you enjoy this little look at my thoughts and kind of, I guess, the behind the scenes of making this show. I thought it was a fun exercise. You guys can try it too. And let me know what if you guys disagree with me on anything or if I missed anything. But thank you for being Third Win super fans. Let me know in the comments below what you want to see, any behind the scenes or any video ideas that you want me to present to you guys. I'm here for it. So anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video, and I appreciate you guys so much. Much love, and I'll see you soon.